Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Agents of Dev podcast. I'm Mitch Ashley. I lead the software lifecycle engineering practice at Futurum Group and also a practitioner myself. My co-host, Brad Shimmin. Hey, Brad. Good to see you again.
Hey there, Mitch. Good to see you. I understand we're gonna chat about a little bit of anger today in the developer community and try to make some sense about it or of it.
Yeah, that's one, that's sort of one mob you don't want to get angry at you because they rile up
They'll just
fast.
make a new language.
Tell folks about what you do at Futurum, by the way. Or did you?
Oh
do
yeah,
that?
sorry. If for those of you who haven't or aren't following us, and if you're not, we would love you to tune into our podcast. Mitch and I do this weekly, and we would love for you to join us on that journey. For me, I'm just like Mitch. I'm very similar, and in that I'm an analyst and I cover data intelligence, analytics, and infrastructure, and I'm also a practitioner. Sadly beating his head against the impenetrable wall of data science on a daily basis.
Yes, data. The world sometimes is an island in the data world, but it seems less so. But maybe that's a topic for another podcast.
That is a
We
good
should do
topic.
that.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
talk about that.
I'd love to talk with you about that. Get your thoughts on it. So the controversy, which I didn't see this, you told me about it, was about Anthropic, sort of changing their use of their API to subscription customers who get the 200 all-you-can-eat buffet of Claude from any tool you like, but actually they changed it. Talk about what happened.
Yeah, so developers that were using a number of other tools that can basically use a harness to access Anthropic's models, as you just described, using OAuth to get there. So you basically just log in to your Anthropic backend via this third-party front-end tooling, like OpenCode, which was the most vocal of the communities to get angry about this. I think it was on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. I
Either
forget
way,
what day it was. I think it's the 9th is when it was, whenever that was.
yeah, I think that's Friday, and so they woke up that day and booted up their favorite open source friendly CLI tool that does a lot of things that Cloud Code, which is Anthropic's front end tooling, does not do. Such as they're catching up. Okay, I'm not saying that it's inferior. I'm just saying that their open source tools like OpenCode have demonstrated some great ideas, like natively incorporating language server processors or LSPs, or language service protocol. Whoa, sorry guys, to basically allow models to sort of look for syntax errors without having to ask. Did I do something wrong? They can just fix it on their own, which is great. And so anyway, OpenCode developers woke up on Friday and went to incorporate their Claude backend to use Sonnet or Haiku or any of the models they have, honestly, with their plan, and they were kicked out with a cannot log in warning. And when pressed about it, Anthropic basically responded to say that, well, this was really an inappropriate use of our API backend and one that was not in line with our security requirements, and so we have turned it off. And you can make of that what you will, and I think they're right to protect their customers by ensuring the proper use of their backend services. That is their responsibility, after all, right? But it sort of irked a lot of people because it has become very common practice right now to use the front end of your favorite front end, let's say Google's anti-gravity, and be able to access Anthropic and their terrific models for coding. And suddenly, you can't do that. You have to go right to Claude to do that with their own software, so Anthropic with their own software.
I think several things kind of tick people off. One is your Ralph Wiggins. We'll talk about Ralph Wiggins. Your Ralph loops that were running overnight suddenly stopped running, didn't complete because there was no notice too. So You were logged in, or you went into open code. And both you couldn't log in then, but also anything that happened to be running was already out of commission, and you're figuring out what to do. People are complaining this is a walled garden. I don't see it necessarily that way. Anthropic's got a business. They want people to use their models, but their tools, they obviously want to have the best access to their models, and they're giving away a lot of stuff with their $200 subscription a month. Yeah, not the $200 isn't
Well,
a lot of money.
you know what, man? I think that is one of the drivers of this decision is giving away, because when you allow people to just use their a la carte, eat all you can eat, license in another tool, you being Anthropic can't control how that API gets used. So if I'm in the Anthropic front ends, I am using their model router, for example, to select which model to run against whatever task I give it. So if Haiku is going to save them, Anthropic, a lot of money, that's what you want.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I get that. Of course, OpenAI immediately responded and said, "Hey, we don't have such limitations. Come on over. The water's fine."
Is it? I was looking to see, because Codex is open source, okay, but I don't see an easy harness to bring in external models like we have in other tooling packages. Even Claude, it's Claude Code itself, and Gemini and others are semi-open. Like Gemini is open source, but it's not an open harness, and it's the same with Codex.
Right. And that's a big difference when you're talking about your tools accessing the model versus their tools accessing their own models. So I guess bring your own AI isn't quite totally 100%, but just bring your own AI, whether that's models or tools. There are limitations, some limitations apply, some assembly required.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could still use an API key, and that's how a lot of people do that, but you don't get the same benefits that you do in using an OAuth just login methodology for that subscription, that unlimited subscription. So, it's not that they're turning things off entirely. It's just that they are tightening the constraints around how you use their licensing programs. For better or worse, I guess. If we've seen this many times with lost leaders, have we not, Mitch? Where companies will we're in the best one. My favorite one is we're in a research phase. Therefore, this is free. And what that means is we're going to harvest every single interaction you have to better train our models to later on monetize. Open Code does this with their Zen API model service itself, wherein they have a proprietary model called Big Pickle, and that's totally free. You can use it all day long, but you're giving it everything that you're asking it to do.
Well, and often, they're feature limited, or the previous generation is free. The newest thing you have to pay for. I think the big thing here was like you said, you could still access Claude, the models. You just have to pay the API token price, which can rack up some big dollars pretty quick if you aren't careful about.
Especially with Mr. Wiggins at the helm.
Wiggins at the helm. Well, so you're ready to talk about Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, okay, if we're talking about Gemini CLI, talking about open code, talking about even anti-gravity and Zed with the sidebar, any of these front-end CLIs that enable agentic development are under the hood basically just a for loop with a break or an exit clause in there upon success. And this idea that we're chuckling about is a methodology based upon a Simpsons character that was very helpful in that he was constantly screaming, "I'm being helpful, I'm being helpful," and it's sort of a, well, okay, if we take this seriously and we apply that to agentic development, and we just force the model to keep chewing on the problem that it has, instead of either refusing to comply, which happens, or failing and stopping, or early stopping, or getting lost, which also happens, then we can actually get some good code out of it. But as you mentioned, and so rightly so, is that that could be quite expensive and might be running for quite a long time. Hence, everyone getting a little upset on Friday when Ralph was found dead in the street.
Yeah, it's actually in the Claude library. If you in the Claude library, you can access this routine. So what I find fascinating about this, I think it's Jeff Huntley, who's the person who created this. He called it a core loop originally, and it was a bash script, which basically essentially did the same thing without AI, but now it's with AI. But what I really find fascinating about it, it gets around several problems. One is this end state completion. How many times have we done a prompt and it says, "Oh, I'm done. Here you go. Here's your answer." You're like, "Yeah, I said there were 5 things and you did 2," or whatever, and it likes to stop early and claim success. So this idea of having an end state that you defined, and then that's what keeps the core loop keep going until it actually does satisfy whatever the end condition is. But the other thing that goes along with it is every iteration, we have things like context window issues, right? And memory issues.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
And we want to do long running agents, you got to solve those problems. So one of the ways you can kind of get around it, I don't know if it's solving it, but every loop can be another session, another instance. So you're iterating, and you're not flooding the zone of your context window.
Yeah, nice analogy.
But at some point, it floods over the window.
It does, yeah, and that context stuffing is not the answer. And just, do you remember when Meta released their 4 billion token context window model? Or was it 10? Oh God, was it even more than that? Sorry, the upper limit that we knew of at the time, without using techniques like rope to fake it out, was like 1 million parameters from the Gemini models, with 2.5, I think, at the time. And you can't just take that for granted. As you and I have talked about, there's this U-shape attention deficit within that context window to begin with. So what you're talking about with this Wiggins technique is I think an important sort of point that we should be talking about. And so I'm kind of glad that it's bringing that to light, and that is proper use of the context window. And one of the predictions that I have for this year is this sort of emphasis on optimizing that memory system for models, and using a number of techniques intertwined, like semantic caching, for example, where you're not trying to save the entire history. You're just trying to save the meaning of it and reference that, not the whole thing.
Yeah, because you have, anytime that you inject something early into the process, it can carry that through. It may have gone down a wrong path, and not, even though you told it that's not the right thing, it keeps some of that going, right? You're like, hey, this isn't right.
It relearns to fail every time. Yes,
exactly. So it's an interesting concept. One of my predictions too for 2026 is the emergence of the new development paradigm of how we're creating software. I think is emerging this year, and not that it will be codified and finalized by the end of the year, but I think we're going to be talking well beyond vibe coding and just AI powered or AI native type coding. There's a lot of these things are being invented and learned as we go, of course, well, as the models and the tools are changing themselves. But we'll see more things like control planes and guardrails and things like that being a serious part of not only the architecture, but how you architect it. And my thought is that, we're going from software development to software engineering. And that's because that's what this upper level thing of not writing all the code, but directing the code and reviewing and assigning work and deciding architecting how things get built. And Wiggins is a great example of that. An innovation somebody creates that gets around an architectural
Limitation.
technical limitation.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about all of these layers of abstraction that we're gaining with generative AI in particular. And I don't know where I even heard it, but there's this quote about every layer of abstraction is a bet on that in the future, at some point, you won't need to understand what's happening beneath that layer.
Mhm. Mhm. And
I'm
how
like,
often
that's a
is that true?
terrifying thing to think about.
Yeah, well, maybe at some point, if you wait long enough, it's true, but I'm sure that there are many
Well,
times.
because you have another layer that will
Yeah, exactly.
obviate
You
the
just forgot
need.
about the third layer under the second layer under the first layer.
Yep.
Good point. It's interesting. It's just such a fun ride to be part of this whole recreation, how we're building software and
Yeah.
getting to experiment with it. You and I aren't living in code every day. You're doing a lot of projects too there with our signal work, which has been fantastic. You've done a really fantastic job of that.
Thanks,
So
man.
it's good you're able to keep your hands in it. Me, I get to dabble in a lot of things and do that without having the commitment of a project.
Yes, the evil scientist. Yes, you're able to build that tower, hoist the sail, and gather
Yeah,
electricity from the storm.
I'm the mad scientist. Wahaha.
Exactly.
you're, you're
That
like, I got to ship product.
yeah, right. And is a bit of a conflict, is it not, in our industry, where you have companies saying that the way we're going to measure success is how many vibe coded lines you've generated in this
Mhm.
past week. And, forget the fact, and this goes to the whole, technical debt thing we're talking about with betting on abstraction layers, but forgetting that, just the fact that, developers can't take the time to actually think about what they're doing. Instead, they're just waiting on the prompt to come back with the solution that they're trying to solve. And that's where they're spending their
Mhm.
time, is formulating their intent and their question, and not musing about, well, maybe there's a better way to do this. And instead, they're using AI to chase the solution. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I do feel like we lose something in that, if all we're doing is chasing these. I'm not saying arbitrary, but they are arbitrary measures of
Mhm.
value and quality.
Well, and that seems to be a distinction quality of some developers. It's not a job; it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's really part of their psyche, their being. It's really enjoy it that much. Oftentimes, those are the folks that are you can't not work, because when you work, you're playing. Not working, you're playing with the same
Exactly.
technologies or different ones. That's where a lot of those innovation and that innovation time comes from, which is great. It's great that people that are so passionate about it get a
Yeah,
chance
like
to.
like we were joking earlier on with, they'll just make a new language if you piss them off. The reason why I thought of that was thinking about Mr. Pike at Google, who loathed all the semicolons so much so that he developed a programming language wherein the compiler added them in for you later, so you didn't have to type them or look at them.
I can't remember if it was Jeffrey Huntley or somebody else used the core loop, the Ralph loop, to telling it to create a new programming language where all the primitives are slang from Gen Z, I guess it is.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, that exists. We'll have to look this up. But if anyone that's listening, you know what we're talking about, please put it in the comments,
It's
because
called Cursed.
I
Cursed,
that's what
that's
it
the
is.
name of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just remembered what it was.
Fantastic. That's innovation.
Yes. Yeah. That's a subscription where you have to pay for all the tokens is what that is.
Yeah.
Or a
Well,
local
unless you
model.
just don't care.
You already know the care. Yeah, you work at Anthropic. Well, I think we may have done enough damage on this subject. Um, let's move on to our closing segment. It's time for
Yes.
the drop. All right. I think I went first last time. You want to jump in with your
Sure,
kind of what's
yeah,
on your mind?
absolutely. Because I think very limited scope of things. The thing that's on my mind is related to today's topic, and that is that yesterday, today's Tuesday, and yesterday, Anthropic dropped a new tool, a research tool that's free for use because they're helping to build it out, called Cowork. And Cowork works within their proprietary application um, on Mac, I think initially, and
Mhm.
eventually on their other platforms they support. But basically, what it does is take this notion that many of us have really glommed onto with CLI tools, to basically use generative AI as a backend to do things that we normally would have to do either in the file system or typing it out in a CLI. Sorry, in a file manager or on the
Mhm.
CLI.
Mhm.
And there's no limit to what you can do with that, honestly, because it is the core of the computing experience, is it not? The reason why we're all sitting right now at a computer is that on that computer we have information that we can process and do things with. And this Cowork is really built not for Claude Code developers per se, but for business users and home users and any user who wants to do things with their computer that go beyond. And I'm not pointing fingers here, but there are some implementations wherein if you ask the operating system to help you do something, it will basically say, okay, let's do this together. Open up your file manager and click on the third link down from the file pull down menu. That is not automation. That is not what we want.
It's
So anyway,
instruction.
I I would imagine that we will see more of this as we move forward, and especially to the topic we were talking about with creating these sort of you know very controlled walled gardens of ownership of the user experience itself, and that's what we're seeing Anthropic do here.
Well, excellent. I was excited to hear about that too. It's kind of like skills, another capability that was introduced of, here's a different way of kind of feeding content in and maintaining that content across sessions. Um, my focus right now is just getting ready. It won't be. I don't think it's today, but probably next day or two. We are releasing the first half of 2026 of the software
Ooh,
lifecycle engineering buyer decision maker data. So we completed that survey at the end of the year, and that data is ready. We just got to put the polishing final touches on it into the intelligence platform. So I'll be talking a lot about the data. Just a hint. One of the kind of really interesting things is AI shot up and has now surpassed even security in the top of the list of where people are advancing and
that is
increasing
shocking.
their budgets. Guess
That is
what?
shocking.
Doesn't
Security
happen very
always
often.
tops. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so security followed by cloud, followed by, the typical things that we have. So people are investing in it and counting on it doing some interesting things for us. So we'll have plenty to talk about, Brad. I'm not worried about.
Yeah, just the choosing is the hard part.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And I imagine you do the same thing, meeting with both clients and also people who that we follow, and just kind of here's what we're happening for the year. Here's some of the plans we have that they have, et cetera. So for any of our practices, Brad, mine, or the others, anybody listening, reach out to us if we haven't talked to you yet. We're glad to sit down and talk about both what's happening in our world and what's happening in your world. So we can do
Yeah.
that.
The exchange of information is an insight is one of the best things that we humans can engage in. So we welcome that for sure.
It is. It's fun. All righty. Well, thank you everybody for listening, watching this episode of Agents of Dev. We hope you enjoyed a little Ralph Wiggins conversation while talking about core loops and Ralph loops and also what's happening in the competitive world of models and development tools and all of that good stuff. So thank you for listening. Please follow, tell your friends about the we're getting stats. People are joining. It's really good.
Thank you all.
They're coming on board, listening, and we appreciate it very much. And send us an email if you have a question or a suggestion, or that was really great, or that was really dumb, or why don't you talk about this, or what about that? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at agentsofdev@futurumgroup.com. On behalf of Brad and myself, thanks for joining. We will see you on the next episode. Stay tuned next week.
Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.